What's going on, y'all? I'm KM Best. That's Lambie Series. We are here with another episode of 8 Cubes, a Marvel Snap show, and I want to kick us off by talking about Silver Samurai, who is the card that maybe was the most hyped this season, or maybe just was the received beneficiary of all the hype, because it feels like this season a card would come out, everyone would be like, oh, maybe this is the one, and then they'd move on to something else. It would not be the one. And then maybe like a week later, X-23 found a home, something like that. Silver Samurai, for me, has still not found a true home. There are those decks that are playing him with Ghost Rider, Iron Man, Darkhawk. I actually had a video of playing him in like a mid-range shell with like Swarm, Calling Wing, Angela Kitty, but it's sort of hard to tell how much lifting he's actually doing and how good the disruption that he's giving is, but he fits in like some solid mid-range shells. I don't think at this point that I'd be in on Silver Samurai as a card to like invest for spotlight caches in, but I think it's like a solid card if you happened to open it in like one cache or you wanted the Kitty Bride variant. What are your thoughts right now?
Firstly, my priority for that week was the Kitty Bride variant. Let's get that out of the way
Right.
first. All right, but anyway, so I played the card a little bit. I tried to cook with it for like a whole stream. I realized you are right, which is the card is okay. Like you can play the card. The card is decent, but it hasn't made any of my existing shells like any better. It's like I tried to play it in Kitty, Angela kind of stuff. It's good because you can play it on curve with some level of disruption to your opponent's hand, but it hasn't really been game winning, like how like Black Bolt used to be like a lot better. I think just because Black Bolt was bigger. This 4-5 doesn't really do it for me. I feel like the Ghost Rider stuff is a bit too cute. Like if it works, it's very winning, right? But if it doesn't exactly discard like the Iron Man and you get it back for like cheaper, it's not that great. So I think this card is one of those cards that you, like you said, you get it, you play with it, you can make like a tier 2 deck, but I think it's nowhere close to tier 1. Like the tier 1 decks now are just too strong.
And I think we should also be clear, if you're not getting a tier 1 deck out of your investment of 4 spotlight caches, generally you should rethink that investment.
Agreed.
Let's move on to how do you beat BROOD? Now, for me, this is just a very simple answer of you got to go tall, but it gets a little more complex when you account for you have to go tall while playing one card a turn because of the potential for, of course, spoilers for later in the show, wave. So I do think that my answer to this question is going to be Kitty Shuri. Now, you might think it might not be a good idea to play Kitty deck if you're afraid of wave, but you can pretty much straight up play Shuri, Red Skull, Taskmaster. Those are your final turns of the game. Doesn't matter if they play wave. Shuri, Red Skull, Taskmaster, put them in the right lanes. They're going to be big enough to win. And a lot of the decks that are playing Brood have decided that it's time to start cutting stuff like Shang-Chi to play wave and Brood. And we'll probably cover that a bit later, but right now, I think the answer is very straightforwardly just go as tall as you possibly can. I think Shuri Kitty is the best position deck to do that. And I think that there are tons of ways to do that, but right now, that would be my preferred one.
Right. So the thing about the Brood deck is it's very simple. Like I think in the previous episode we also talked about it. This deck is just literally Forge Brood apps, man. That is 31 stats for 9 energy. It's crazy. It's so much stats. The thing about going tall versus that deck is the only way you really go tall is you kind of need Shuri, Red Skull, Taskmaster, and like the thing is, if you don't hit that curve, the Brood deck generally just like explodes wide enough for them to just like not care. And some of them are playing Iron Man now. I mean, even if they cut Shang, which I think you shouldn't, I think you should keep Shang because the Brood deck never loses wide, so you just need one answer to the tall. But yeah, they play Iron Man as well, which can help with the whole going tall thing as well. So I personally think Shuri Kitty is a decent choice to try and beat that deck. But consistently, I don't believe there is any deck that can really beat the Brood deck right now. Like I've been trying different versions of like Silk Wave, Silky Smooth, Shuri Kitty sometimes. Destroy if it high rolls, yeah, it can beat anything. But like honestly, the Brood deck is just the way it is because of the amount of consistent mid statted like cards it can come out, like 15 stats from the Brood, 15 stats from the apps, man. It's too much. Like no deck can really compete with that level of like burst like in the mid game.
So let's move on to a card combination that a lot of people are adding into their Brood Absman decks. And spoiler alert, I'm pretty sure we both agree that you should not be doing that. That is Doom and Wave. And I'd like you to talk about why you don't think they belong in the Brood decks.
All right, I'll start by first talking about why Doom Wave is good again, because Doom now with 15 total stats is a big difference, right? It used to be 13 like just a few weeks, just a while ago. Now it's 15 total stats. It covers a lot of ground, and now like Captain Marvel is also nerfed, so like it's better than Captain Marvel per se.
Yeah, 5
but
is
yeah,
more
no,
than 4.
what?
This is crazy.
Yeah, 5 is more than 4, guys. Okay, but back to what we actually want to talk about, which is why it's not good in the Brood deck. Because the thing is, Doom is a card that actually clogs you too often in the Brood deck, and Doom does not actually benefit from Forge, which is what you want to do, right? You want to go Forge on 2 into Brood on 3, Absman on 4. The Doom, like as much as it's nice to have it off of Ironlad, for example, it's actually detrimental to your game plan because you're already using 3 spaces for your Brood and Absman, and then if you play Doom as well, you clog yourself. So 20 total points in a lane. It's a lot, but like versus something like a Shuri Kitty, when they see your clock for 20, they're like, all right, free lane. So yeah, the Doom looks great. I would actually consider playing Wave as a tech in like Brood apps, but not the Doom.
Yes, so that's exactly it, right? Like, part of it is that it clogs you too much. The other part of it, for me, is that you're using some of your tech slots on this. You're solving a problem that you already had solved. This deck does not need more ability to go wide. It's already the best deck in the game at going wide. You don't need more of that. You already do that better than anyone else. So why would you add this tech in so that you can do that more? What you need to add the tech for is what beats you, right? So if you're losing to mirrors, maybe you play, like, I don't know, Luke Cage Shadow King, right? If you're losing to things that go tall, maybe you play Shang-Chi. But you need to change your deck for the things that beat you, not just, put this hot new combo in the deck without thinking about, like, what problems does this actually solve? That's my perspective on it. It's not even so much that I think it's bad. I think, Wave especially is actually, like, it's good against Deadpool, for example, because Deadpool is very much all about just like, I'm going to play 2 giant idiots. That's good. That's totally fine. If you want to stop them from playing 2 giant idiots, it's just, you can also just play armor. I think Wave might be a little more reliable in that matchup because you can draw her later. There's less time pressure on when she can be useful. But generally, I would say you need to be making changes to a list like that based on what problems you're trying to solve. And I don't think Doom and Wave are solving any actual problems in the deck. Next up is the new Season Pass card, Loki. Spoiler alert, both of us have plenty of those battle passes to give away, thanks to our sponsorship from Marvel Snap, hashtag ad. Yes. But Loki, 3 cost, 4 power, replace your hand with cards from your opponent's starting deck. They cost 1 less. What are your thoughts on this card?
So the interesting thing about Loki is the way I look at it is I'm thinking for this card to work, you need to play it like you don't really care what you get from your opponent's deck. You care more that they are cheaper. So the obvious ones are people have been talking about Quinjet, Loki, and then you get double discounts, stuff like that. I feel like Loki has potential if you build it, like I said, to not really care what you get from their deck. Like you just get the stats and you play it on the board for discounted like costs. So I think the card has a potential to be quite strong. Just that you need to build your existing deck to have like that alternate game plan, in case you don't draw Loki on like turn 3. I feel like if you're gonna play Quinjet anyway, maybe you can go like Collector, you can go like some random generation that benefits from the Quinjet and stuff like that. And then if you get to do the Loki on 3 thing, you don't really care because like everything else is cheap. You just play everything that you get from your opponent, and then you just play like I guess you want the rest of your deck to be a little bit low cost as well, because you're gonna play cheap cards from Loki, and then you want to draw cards that can be paired with the cheap cards that you got from Loki, right? And you also probably want to have like a decent hand size, if not the cards that you swap. As if not, you don't get to swap that many cards with Loki anyway. And also, of course, this kind of deck must play Chavez, right? Because you want Quinjet, you want Loki on 3, and I'm thinking what kind of backup game plan we can go in case we don't actually draw Loki on 3. Maybe some Zabu thing, because that
I think it would
fills
be
in
like
with the whole like discounts thing.
I think it'd be like Kitty Ange kind of backup, right? You just end up being like one of
Yeah.
those Kitty Ange collector mid-range decks. Like when I played
Mhm.
around with Dino, one of the things I noticed was you don't actually really need Dino. Like you can just be like a
Yeah.
Kitty Ange collector Legion mid-range deck, and that can just be your plan, and that's totally fine. And I think
Mm.
Loki, like every experience I've had in every other card game is that's not a good effect. Like I don't think I've ever played one of these cards and it's been like, oh wow, that's broken. But in Marvel Snap, getting cards is actually just really strong. If they're discounted with Quinjet and Loki, that's also just really, really, really strong. Like what I was trying to think of though is to do a Hearthstone analogy, is there like a Zoolock type deck that wants to just play a bunch of
Yes.
cards early and then Loki just for gas later? Is that a
Yeah.
deck that can exist? What do you think?
Yeah, it works because very similarly to what I was saying earlier, which is basically you just don't really care what you get from them. You just
Yeah.
take their cards that are cheaper and play them onto the board for stats. But of course, with Loki, you need like a sufficient hand size, right? If not, the cards you don't get that many cards anyway. So I feel like you just play Loki for the stats that you get from them. Then you just whatever you get, you just play it on the board, play it on the board. And like I said, your deck you fill it with cards that can pair with the cards that you get from Loki, which is like not exactly pair with synergy, but pair with energy cost. Like let's say you play Loki on turn 3, on turn 4, you get some playable cards from them, and you have a chance to draw cards from your deck that are also playable together with the Loki cards, just because it fits the energy curve. So you just play everything, just play everything. Like I feel like Loki decks have to be you can't really like rely consistently on like what you get from your opponent's deck to have a legit game plan, but you can rely on their stats, discounted stats.
Yeah. Like the thing is you're probably going to get something pretty reasonable there, but like the issue is are those cards ever going to be better than what you'd already be playing? And how do you make them
Mm-hmm.
better than what you'd already be playing is usually just via Quinjet, via collector, those like that like tax on additional value to those
Yeah.
cards. But I find it hard to strike a balance between, oh, I want to play a bunch of cards and then convert my hand into better stuff with Loki, and oh, I want to have stuff in my hand to convert to better stuff with
Mm-hmm.
Loki. It seems hard for me to strike that balance. I'll be interested in exploring it, but my instinctive reaction is I don't think this card is very good. But if it does
Okay.
end up being very good, it's like super broken. If this actually ends up being good, it's ridiculous, right?
Yeah. I just want to put it out there also that if you have Quinjet, Zabu, Loki, for example, like I'm saying Zabu because there's bound to be some 4 cost cards in your opponent deck. Your 4 cost cards will cost 1, 2, 3. Will cost 1. So like I mean imagine getting a 1 cost Shang-Chi, you don't care. So like
That's
I'm
pretty
just
good.
thinking, you know.
That's
Yeah.
pretty good. Next up, Marvel Snap is reintroducing the leaderboard. As of right now, I am technically the only person who has ever been confirmed to have the highest MMR in the game at any point. Now there will be so many people who have had that confirmed. I had to get it confirmed by the devs. I was just posting in the Discord one day complaining about bots, and one of them stopped by to be like, hey, that's your own fault. You have the highest MMR in the game. That's how it works. Now everyone will be able to do that, and they got rid of bots. I gotta tell you, I played 4 hours of ladder last night, not a single bot. I was blown away. I was really a lot happier with the experience than I expected to be. What do you think about the ladder leaderboard?
All right. So firstly, the downside first is that Conquest to me is just the superior mode, like the more entertaining mode. Let's get it out there first. So I
Yep.
think the competitive players that play tournaments and have been practicing their cube management and stuff like that will still stick to Conquest. But having said that, I think there is a market for a leaderboard. Like if you Hearthstone reference again, like people just like to see numbers get bigger, or in this case, numbers get like higher in rank, right? Like I personally am not I don't think I will grind it as hard as how I used to grind Hearthstone, but like I will try. I will just like play a bit of ladder and then like see what the number I get is. If like maybe near the top, I'll push a little bit more. I think it's also good content, right? Like sometimes if you are just like near the top of the leaderboard and then you can be like, oh, I'm gonna make a rank one push, stuff like that. Yeah, so there is I don't think there is much merit to doing it, but like it gives you like certain levels of fulfillment. And also some people just don't like Conquest as well, right? So it gives their ladder grind like a little bit more incentive. So long story short, I think I will try, but I don't think it will be like the most competitive thing ever. But it definitely has a market.
I share your hesitance because it is weird. If you'd asked me 6 months ago, this would have been the number one thing that I would have wanted. But
Mm-hmm.
now Conquest is out and it's better. It's just a
Mm-hmm.
better competitive game mode. It is what I would say the every competitive event should be run on at this point, and it definitely does reward a little bit of different incentives. Like the same decks are good in Conquest and Ladder, but gotchas are way better in ladder, and that's gotcha, GOTCHA, not gotcha as in how you acquire cards in Marvel Snap. But like for example, a card like Wave has a lot more value in Conquest, especially if they're not expecting it. A card like a random Galactus, a Claw, anything that's just off the wall is going to be better in ladder than Conquest, because once they see it in Conquest, it ends up being, oh, I can just beat that. So the classic example I would use is a bounce versus wave. On ladder, that wave is going to be really good as long as you don't telegraph it. In Conquest, once they've seen the wave, they just kind of know they can play on turn 5 every single time. And I do think there are, like, that does change some dynamics a bit, but overall, I think that matchups end up staying roughly the same between ladder and Conquest. So I think that's a question people have a lot. Do you think there's a difference between ladder and conquest? Like gotcha cards are a little bit better, but mostly I think things stay the same.
In a sense, I feel like for ladder grinding or like trying to get a high rank on ladder, there is a in theory, in my head, there is a solved way of doing this. Like if you just be disciplined, it's like how poker players grind multiple tables of like online poker. If you just like for ladder specifically, if you just like play good hands, snap good hands, retreat when someone snaps you, retreat your bad hands. Overall, if you're above average player, you should be going up in the ranks. So if you adopt this very no emotions discipline system, you should climb. But I'm very interested to like test it out to see if it's actually as like solved as I think it is.
Next up, the Johnson Cup might just be the most stacked Marvel Snap competition that I have ever seen. There are multiple of my friends competing, one of whom is a Lambie series himself. I would like to know what your thoughts are on the future of Team Marvel Snap, because I know in games like Magic, team trios events are like a really big thing. Team events could be pretty cool in Marvel Snap, and this is the first big team event outside of like a Twitch Rivals that I've seen. What do you think
Mhm.
about it?
I think team events will be very good for like content and viewership. Like if they figure out how to like put everybody's camera, like proper overlay with everybody's camera there, and then like sometimes they tune into team comms and stuff like that. And there's like smack talk and everything. I think team events will be very good, very entertaining to watch. And also, team events means you pair with your friends, right? Like you can pair with your
Yeah.
friends, who you've been practicing with and stuff like that. And there is like banter, there is like teamwork, and I mean this one I feel like it's very stacked also because Johnson, when he selected the players to invite, he didn't just select like known players. Like I mean, like myself, I'm a streamer, so I'm like sort of known, but he also just selected players that don't stream, don't create content, but are just straight up good at the game because
Yeah.
he's very involved in the scene, so he knows who these people are. So this tournament, in terms of like skill level, is gonna be like way up there. Does the I mean, I'm a bit sad it's single elimination, but I guess time constraints. But other than that, I think this tournament is gonna be very stacked. You can tune in and watch it on his channel for Korean, and for English, you can tune in on L Force's channel, the owner of Snap Battle Arena. He's gonna be streaming it as well. So this is gonna be a good event. I'm playing. I did like some like trash talk thing saying that this was free food, but like obviously it's not gonna be free food. It's gonna be difficult, but like banter is good. Banter is fun.
All right. So I did want to give a shout out to some of those players who are just like good players that don't really stream at all. Players like Jet, players like the Human Spider, players, he's gonna get mad at me, but players like Wowolos, who needs to stream more, players like Jake Doan finished second place in the Marvel Snappers Assemble and just actually started streaming. There are a ton of talented players in the tournament, and I will confess I was invited, but then he told me that the finals mandatory time was the equivalent of like 5:30 or 6:30 my time, and I was just like, I cannot commit to doing that. So I'm very happy for everyone who was invited to the Johnston Cup. For everyone, there are 3 teams I'm rooting for composed of my friends. Your team is, of course, one of them, and I hope one of you guys gets through the foreigner bracket.
Yeah. Also, one more person, KJB. We can't do this without talking about KJB.
Yeah, Jesus. There's so many good
KJB.
ones. There's so many good ones. KJB is absolutely correct.
Yes.
Next up, a topic near and dear to both of our hearts. Thanos. We know there's a good Thanos deck somewhere. We don't know what it is. I have seen the Human Spider's Lockjaw Thanos is probably the one that I like the most. Like, it's the one that makes the most sense to me, but I don't know if it's actually good or if he's just, player diffing people everywhere. And what are your thoughts on Thanos? Because to me, it strikes me as the deck that is, I would almost say, not necessarily the easiest to integrate your snaps with your play, but one of the easiest to achieve that sort of synergistic whole. There are a lot of other decks where you are playing the deck and then you have to think about where you snap. With Thanos, your snaps come easy, I think, because of the sort of knowledge that you have of your hand and the knowledge that they don't have of your hand. So I do like playing it a lot, but there are just, 27 different builds. Do you have an opinion of what the best one is?
Yeah, I think 27 is like shortchanging it. Thanos has I think you can just play it 100 different ways, man. Like, honestly, outside of Thanos itself, you can just play it anything. It's like you can play it junk style, you can play it destroy, you can play it like lockjaw, ongoing, whatever. Thanos is so versatile. The problem with Thanos right now is that it's doing everything, but not everything as well as other decks. Going white, you have Brood. Going tall, you have Red Skull. Going just pure numbers and into Wave Doom is you have Silk. So I feel like the thing about Thanos is that now it's just very tier 2, which is a bit sad because I love Thanos, like you love Thanos as well. The thing about Thanos decks is that it can really do anything. You can build it however you want. I've experimented recently with Lockjaw as well because Doom unnerved, right? So Doom, Odin, Lockjaw, very nice things to do. Killmonger. Then there's also the Destroy Thanos, which I've been talking to a few Japanese players to try and get their lists and stuff like that. Yeah, the thing is Thanos just does everything slightly above average, but not great right now. So I think the next time we will see Thanos at the top, it has to be a thing that only Thanos does well and other archetypes cannot do. Then we will see Thanos all the way at the top again.
I will say one of the nice things about Thanos is just that it has Mind Stone. It's cool that you have these just free wins built into your deck just by existing. I do think that's nice. There are a lot of decks that a tier 2 deck with a bunch of free wins in it is still a pretty good deck, in my opinion. But it's just, I have found it so hard to figure out what the correct build of this list is that I find it hard to recommend to anybody, because at any given time, whatever you make your build do, there might be something doing it a little bit better.
I think the one thing I feel Thanos can very consistently do better than a lot of decks, maybe not now because Brood has too much stats on the board. One thing it always does well, and when it's a top deck, is when you can use Time Stone to churn out a lot of stuff. The W Thanos deck, when it was at the top of the game, it was just Time Stone on 3 into 5 into 5 into 5. Yeah, that kind of thing Thanos does very well on the back of the Time Stone. So I feel if Thanos were to be at the top again, whenever it becomes the top again, it will be that angle.
Yeah, I'll also note that people are playing a lot less Killmonger, and that angle was hurt pretty badly by Killmonger, because when you're going, Time Stone into 5 into 5 into 5, you're pretty much playing one card a turn, which means you want to have played all your stones beforehand, which means they're absolutely getting Killmongered. And now, you actually get to use them to get ahead. They're actually stats on the board. Your blue marvels are better, more. I think the meta has shifted a little bit in its favor. It's just, there's just a lot of really strong decks doing really competitive things right now, and it's hard to find an identity for the list. Finally, where's the show? Where have we been? Well, I think my answer to this might be a little bit more involved than Lambie's. I and Lambie, of course, went to the Marvel Snappers Assemble tournament to do commentary, and that was in Hong Kong. So we were able to, exist in Hong Kong. He showed up on my stream one night. That was pretty cool. Thank you for doing that. And in addition to that, though, I had trouble getting back. So I live in a part of the country that is often beset by storms. I don't want to be more specific than that. But when I got back to America, I thought everything was going to be fine. All right, I did all the passport stuff. I'm good. And then it turned out my flight got canceled. So because of the storms, so I had to try to get an earlier flight so I could get to where I was going before the storms got there. And then I couldn't even get to where I was going. So instead of doing that, I had to reroute myself to where some relatives lived so that I could stay at their house for a few days so that I could just be in a house instead of camping at an abandoned airport, which actually, for the record, kind of was my plan. It was, I did have a sleeping bag in my larger luggage. There was a non-zero chance. I mean, if we're honest, I probably would have gotten a hotel, but I only made it home on Friday, and I left Hong Kong on the 28th. So, and that's like with a time change too. It was a crazy journey for me, and that of course caused us to be entirely unable to record the Wednesday episode of this show because I was in the process of just trying to figure out if I was going to be like alive and with electricity. That was my week. Luckily, it was very nice. The relatives took care of me very, very well. It was a very wonderful time, and they turned what could have been a terrible, terrible experience into a very, very good one. And I do want to thank the ER people for flying me out. It was much appreciated. I had a ton of fun casting the ER tournament. Lambie, what were your thoughts on the tournament and, of course, the travel?
Right, so I only have two things to add to your long around the world in 80 days story kind of thing. So basically, for me it was a 4-hour flight and I'm home. I was home like I think 4 days before KM. But anyway, anyway, the thing is the ER sports in Hong Kong was it was great. Like they treated us well, accommodations were great. They flew us out. It was something that I really miss because like when I used to do in-person events, we always flew out no matter how far it was, like a bunch of friends knew that we were going for this event. We were always planned to fly out, meet each other, go for the event together, like stuff like that. I miss that a lot. So this one, we went there for casting, met KM for the first time, met a few other people for the first time, like Torikun and Jake, for example. Yeah, the whole event was great. And I think like one thing I want to say is that like in-person events really bring out the esports side of things, right? Like competing in person, live events. The production there was great. The hosting was great. Everything was great. Like I know it's like only a 3-day kind of like trip for us, but like for the most part, I really wish that there will be more potential like such events because it really connects the players, the creators, the developers. Like Nuverse was there, for example, some of the people. So it connects everybody. And like whatever level you're playing at or whatever kind of thing you're doing in the game, I feel like in-person events just bring everybody closer on a different level. So I really hope there's more of those in the future.
Yeah, I will say that doing that casting was some of the most fun I've ever had and some of the most intimidating work I've ever done. There was a bit where you guys were having technical issues and I had to solo cast for 10 minutes just talking about the potential matchup of what you guys were doing. That was the most I have ever sweat in one time, and I like going to the gym. That was tough. I'm very happy with like how I came out of that because that could have gone so absolutely terribly, but you know me, there was no dead air. I'm very good at talking forever. Yep. So
I also want to say, just one thing to add to what you just mentioned, which is the sweat moment. There was one time you and Kawa were on the stage as well, and I had to solo cast you guys for a little bit, but thankfully Tori came in to be my co-caster. But it was funny because I rehearsed and practiced with you quite a bit, right, for the casting bit. But when Tori stepped in, I didn't realize at first that we had to do the whole production thing all over again while you guys were on stage, like all the sponsor stuff and everything like that. So I was like, wait, I gotta do this again. And then like I was like, oh no, but the script was in front of me. So yeah, small thing aside, it was just a clutch moment that was saved by quick thinking.
We love to see that on 8 Cubes. And of course, hold on, I'm going to put a cut there. Oh, damn it, we went over again. Fuck. That brings us to the end of our show. This has been 8 Cubes with KM Best and Lambie Series. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as you enjoyed the previous ones. You can find episodes of 8 Cubes here on my channel and on Lambie's channel. What we do is the beginning of the week episode, that one ends up on mine. The midweek to end of week episode, that one ends up on his. And of course, we have a Spotify podcast page. You can find all these episodes on that Spotify podcast page about, 12 to 24 hours after they go up on our respective YouTube channels, if you're someone who wants to listen to them a little bit later, or if you're someone who has a hell of a commute. We wish you the best. This has been 8 Cubes for Lambie Series. I'm KM Best. Thank you so much for watching and listening.
See you guys soon.